Thank you so much. Oh, I think I'm all mic'd up here. Killer introduction. He's killing it as MC today. So I wanted to speak to you all today about exploring the global opportunity and what that could look like for your e-commerce business. So for a little bit of background about me, I was previously working for a small private label brand. We had a strong e-commerce presence, but we found ourselves really competing to make our brand stand out. How do we drive traffic to that site? And then I since moved on to World First, where I get to work with many e-commerce brands, specifically those that have expanded into the international channels to help them bring their revenues home at a better rate than marketplaces. But mostly what I've learned is how to actually help you grow your business into that space in addition to saving you money. So, why should you go global? Internet retailer is calling for sales to triple in 2017, and all of e-commerce still only makes up for 10% of overall commerce, so there's massive opportunity to grow. They also say that there's 3.1 billion up for grabs in sales in Amazon's European marketplaces alone, and they have 10 marketplaces globally. So again, using Amazon as an example, their storefronts have customers in 185 countries. So there is really a global landscape for sellers buying outside of their, or for buyers rather, that are buying outside of their home country. There is also less competition. A lot of the marketplace sellers that I work with complain of a saturated market in the US, to which I immediately say, well, go to the UK. There's no translation barrier. There's no issue in terms of getting your product over there. It's just logistics right off the bat. An e-marketer is calling by 2020 for more of a quarter of the Chinese population will shop online for foreign products. Their population is 1.37 billion people, so you do the math there, that's like almost another mini United States that you could be selling to. And China did 907 billion in turnover on e-commerce channels last year. Other benefits, there are other holidays in different countries. It gives you more opportunities outside of like Christmas, Thanksgiving to take advantage of sales. For example, Singles Day in China did 17.8 million in revenue just on that one day. And there is a willingness for customers to pay more for authentic US goods just outside of the US. In terms of if you're working in a marketplace right now and you're hoping to drive more sellers to come and sell on your marketplace, it's been my experience working specifically with Amazon. The most complaints that I get are they need the opportunity laid out for them. If you want people to sell in the UK, show them how much money they're going to make. If you can make money on a marketplace, people will come sell on it. You need to help them get set up. Make the tools accessible for them to sell in that country if you do want international sellers. And be hands-on with your customer service. I know the biggest complaint I get with sellers that are selling on Amazon is that they can't get anyone on the phone. If their account gets shut down, they don't know what to do. So if you can help assist people with that, they'll be willing to sell. So this is one example of a client that we're working with that I think is fantastic, and I'm trying to get this video to play. There might not be sound, guys. Can you hear it?
Death Wish Coffee, fiercely caffeinated. Intuit QuickBooks is proud to put a small business on today's game.
So what you just saw, was Death Wish Coffee. And this is a terrific example of an e-commerce brand that was selling on Shopify, their own Shopify storefront. The founder of this was roasting coffee in upstate New York. He was working in a coffee shop, and he's like, you know what? I bet I could make better coffee than anyone else out there. So they were founded in 2012, and they also wanted 90 to 95% of their business to be done on e-commerce channels. So they sell on their own storefront in addition to Amazon globally. They were featured on Good Morning America in 2013, which they really found ended up being the tipping point for their business and what really started driving their domestic sales. They started selling internationally after that point because they wanted to be recognized as a global brand. The international markets gave them the opportunity to start selling in a loosely tapped market, so they were able to drive revenue by virtue of having less competition in their same space. And that Super Bowl, the commercial that you just saw, that aired in 2015, and that sent their sales through the roof. So in 2015, they did roughly $6 million in sales. The next year, in 2016, they had brought in nearly $10 million in sales, and 10% of that was from their overseas revenue. So it ended up being a majorly impactful part of their business. But they did encounter major challenges. They weren't sure how to do it. They were like, I don't know where to start with this. We are a brand in upstate New York. We don't know the first thing about selling globally. They didn't know how to manage their different currencies, which luckily we were able to help them with. They needed to figure out how to get competitive rates, bringing their funds and their sales back to the US. And they needed to figure out how to protect their pricing against those fluctuating rates. So it's not like they went into this sale and with this strategy knowing exactly what to do. They had to figure it out as they went, and luckily we were able to help them do that. So that said, what do you need to consider before you do go global? Are your products approved to sell in overseas marketplaces? So there are different ingredient restrictions in every marketplace and country that you sell in, so you need to be aware of those to make sure that the product that you're sending is legal in that country. This is especially true of anything that can be considered hazmat. There are certain perfumes that I think have an ingredient that are very dicey to get into those countries, so you just kind of have to do your due diligence and make sure that you're checking that out. And then another big one, make sure your products are okay to ship. I know this is a huge issue with lithium batteries. Like if a container blows up, you're gonna be in big trouble. So just make sure you're checking everything before you do that. And then consider if you're a reseller or a private label brand. The reason I ask this is because if you are a reseller and say you're just reselling this Aveeno face wash, that listing probably exists in France already or in Germany, Italy, Spain, anywhere where you would need translation. If you're a private label brand, then you need a translator to do your listing, you need a translator to redo all of your labeling, and you may need to make sure that it's local to the country in which you're selling. Can your products be price competitive overseas? So you want to make sure you're working with a repricer. Prices are constantly fluctuating. The more channels you're on, the more you will need to have someone control that pricing for you. If you have an automated repricer, they're going to be able to adjust, and that's going to make your seller ratings better and make your product sell through quicker. Have a strategy in place to protect your margins as the currency rates fluctuate, and make sure that you have a cost-effective way of bringing your funds home. So the rates are constantly fluctuating in FX. So especially in the instance of Brexit, we saw the rates go from roughly like 1.5 to 1.25 in the span of a day. That massively affected some of our clients, and luckily we were able to help them protect against that for those that had bought out forward contracts or chose to do rate alerts and were just aware of what was happening in the market. How will you fulfill and handle your product returns? You can look into 3PL options overseas. You need to make sure you're going to find someone that will help you handle returns. Ask if they will help with customer service globally. Or honestly, you have the amazing option to fulfill from the States as well. Helene has an incredible business helping customers do just that, fulfill globally from the States. So there is also that option if you're not ready to send a big chunk of your inventory into a warehouse overseas. So now you kind of have this top-level checklist. Are you a reseller? Is your product readily available? Can your products be price competitive? Are your products available to sell overseas? How will you fulfill? How will you return? And how will you bring your money home? So now that you know all that, you guys are like ready to go global, right? I feel like you've got it. So how do you get started doing this? If you're going into the UK and EU, You need to set up your VAT numbers. Stands for value-added tax. It's the exact same thing as a sales tax in the US. Amazon got in like some pretty hot water recently. The UK is reporting that they missed out on 1.28 million in sales tax due to VAT fraud, and a lot of this is coming from marketplace sellers. So watch out for Amazon like cracking down on having these numbers. You also need that if you're selling on your own e-commerce site. You got to pay the government. So this usually takes 3 to 6 weeks to get this number. And I usually recommend right off the bat working with a tax advisory firm, just because I don't do my own taxes in the States. I wouldn't be able to figure out how to do it globally. I think it's important to have an expert in that field help you with that initially. As you're figuring out which products to do overseas, do your inventory analysis, see what your best-selling products are in the US, and then do market analysis as well. Some things that sell really well in the US might not sell well in Germany. It might not sell well in the UK. So gauge that market and see what the opportunity is for your product catalog there. Figure out shipping and logistics. You will have to deal with customs, import brokers, and again, there are people that can walk you through this step by step. Again, make sure you don't blow up a shipping container by making sure that your product's okay to sell or ship overseas. And then allow time for any kind of issues with shipping or customs. Often, no matter how much due diligence you do, you might get caught up in customs, and it's just important that you don't have a strict deadline for your product to be there and you're giving yourself enough time for those mishaps to happen. And then set up either your seller pages, website, listings in the UK and EU. Look to see if your listings already exist in these countries, and if you're a private label brand, work with a translator to create your listings. If you're selling into somewhere like Japan, you have to register for a consumption tax number. Same thing as VAT or sales tax. You just have to make sure you're figuring that out. Find an importer of record or 3PL service to receive your product there. Figure out which products to send into Japan. This is basically the same process as before. You need to do your inventory analysis versus what works in that market. Figure out shipping and logistics. Don't blow up a container. Allow 2 weeks for any issues. Kind of the same process here. And then set up your seller pages in Japan. Japan's a little bit trickier because I have a lot of customers that can get away with using Google Translate, and that works, say, in German or French. It's a lot harder in Japanese because it comes out, Google Translate does not have a good solution for that, and you do have to have a customer service solution in place, so you probably need a translator to help you with that. And then you will also need an effective customer service strategy in line with that as well. So recently, our newest solution is China, and we're super excited about that. And we've partnered specifically with Amazon China. So they will assist with your product listings, assist with any customer service requests, assist with the fulfillment. And then there is a huge selling opportunity in this country specifically, especially if you're selling baby products. China just lifted their one-child law, so now you've got the opportunity for 2 babies, and baby products are flying off the shelves on Amazon China. Health and beauty products are huge. Light luxury items, this kind of includes like Michael Kors watches, Rebecca Minkoff purses, something in that price point that's a little bit nicer but not a Louis Vuitton bag. And then vitamins do extremely well in that marketplace too. There are different holidays. Singles Day is November 11th, over 17.8 million worth of gross merchandise sold. And then figuring out shipping and logistics, you have to figure out how to get your product there and again, have customer service in place. And finally, that brings us to bringing your funds home, which is kind of what our business is based in. So the tools that you can use with this are a forward contract. What a forward contract allows you to do is book out a certain exchange rate for a period of time. So say if you know you're going to be moving £500,000 in sales over 6 months' time, you can book out a rate. So that way that allows for you to protect your profit margin and trade down from that rate for the next 6 months. That way if the rate suddenly tanks, you're protected under that umbrella. If the rate suddenly goes up, there's a potential that you might lose out on that a little bit, but it's a tool you can use to at least predict your selling future for that time. You can also sign up for rate alerts, which allows you to say, hey, the rate just went up like 2 points, now's a really good time to trade. Firm orders will trigger a payment if a certain rate is achieved. And then Market Watch as well, it just allows you to be alerted about anything in the currency market that may affect the rates as you move. And so this is kind of a diagram of how the forward contract kind of looks. And then again, if your disbursements are roughly 50,000 pounds a month, your profit margin is 5% at a rate of 1.3. Should GBP USD move 5% against you, your profit margin is gone. So a forward contract would have mitigated that risk. There are pros to that, and there are also cons to that. So this allows you to forecast, but the con is if the rate continues to move in a favorable direction, you might lose out on that earnings as well. So that was my presentation on how to go global. Out of curiosity, is anyone selling already internationally now? Okay, cool. And is that your own private label brand?
Yes.
How was the process for you getting set up, out of curiosity?
I generally don't really know what I'm doing, so I just use Shopify.
Okay,
And currently all the fulfillment comes out of Southern California.
all right.
So I do have to deal with all the customs headaches,
Mm-hmm.
which I've sort of just learned about on the fly.
Right.
The reality is there's nothing I can really do, so I just tell people like, yep, I think customs has it, in a couple days.
Uh-huh.
And so far, so good.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. Well, does anyone else have any questions? This was pretty high level. Again, this is going to end up being a little bit more specific to your business depending on what you sell. But if you guys have questions now or want to come find me, I'll be hanging out for the rest of the day. Okay, you guys are cool? Thank you.